I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome back to KBLA Talk 1580. We just finished a great hour with Dr. Carlos Hill, who is the author of three books, one on Beyond the Rope, the impact of lynching on Black culture and memory, The Murder of Emmett Till, a graphic history, and the 1921 Tulsa Race Massacre, a photographic history. Look forward to having Dr. Hill back on our program. Dominating the news today is a school shooting in Wisconsin where the assailant is allegedly a young lady. And I want to spend this next several segments talking about mindfulness. Whether you're on the 405 or the 10 or the 5 or the 101, if you're driving a car, it's because, one, you have a license, but number two, it is a lesson in mindfulness. You're paying attention to the red lights, the tail lights in front of you. You're driving with your headlights on, letting your neighbor in front of you know that you are approaching. Mindfulness, when you step on your brake and turn on your turn signal, you're thinking about your neighbor. Mindfulness. You're mindful, knowing that you may very well be stuck in traffic. So you're listening to KBLA Talk 1580. You're mindful to tune in to KBLA at this hour. Mindfulness. From the moment you wake up in the morning, have a cup of coffee, go through your morning hygienic routine, mindful of the clothing that you're going to wear, of the meetings that you're going to have, of the way in which you're going to present yourself. Mindful. Sometimes our routines are moving so fast, complicated by cell phones and laptops and technology and an infinite number of television stations and television channels. In this modern world, we are losing some sense of mindfulness. To be mindful of others is a part of what it means to live in a civilized society. When I think about the school shooting today in Wisconsin, and I listen to the police chief saying that they responded as quickly as they possibly could, and by every standard of professionalism, they responded properly. The fire department, the paramedics, but it's always the same story. The mayor steps forward, the governor steps forward, the president issues a statement. Hearts and minds are with those who've lost family members, trying to get to the motive of the shooter. Should we have more gun control? Should we harden the schools with more metal detectors? Should we bring more police officers into the school? And then it ends on the same subject. Some student had a bad mental health day. Some student who needed someone to check in on them. And maybe the other students were too busy. Maybe the teachers weren't paying attention. And maybe before they even got to school, there were a lot of things that were going wrong at home that they were carrying with them to school. My daughter is 24 years old and my son is 22 years old. And I think at this hour, the only thing I can share with them is to be mindful of their surroundings. And those surroundings include, what is my neighbor going through at home with their parents, at home with their significant others, at home with their siblings? Because the school day does not begin at 9 a.m. or 8:30 or when the bell goes off or when you drop your children off. The school day actually begins in someone else's house. The school day does not begin when you sit in the classroom with your teacher. The school day began when someone bullied the person sitting next to you and you didn't stand up for them. or you didn't stand between them and the bully. The school day began when someone had a bad day yesterday. Tomorrow's school day began then. Because we didn't give consideration to the people around us and the people in our space. Maybe school should begin with mindfulness hour, mental health check, empathize with your neighbor hour. In this moment, as I reflect upon the idea of mindfulness, the first class in mindfulness I had was a guy named Mr. Rogers. Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. He used to walk in, sing a little song about what a wonderful day it was in the neighborhood. Then he'd take off his blazer, put it in a closet, and then he would pull out this red sweater, looking right in the camera. After he put on his red sweater, he would take off his shoes, put on some slippers. And for the next hour or so, he would talk real slow, have little Muppets, little puppets come on, and he would talk to them. And then at the end of his show, he would change his shoes, take off his sweater, put on his blazer, talk real slow, because he was Fred Rogers. Fred Rogers was a mindfulness expert. With all that was going on in the world when I was growing up, Mr. Rogers was the calming force and the calming voice to remind us that we lived in a neighborhood. He used to sing this song, "It's a wonderful day in the neighborhood, a wonderful day at the neighborhood. Would you be mine? Would you be mine? Won't you be my neighbor?" Well, that's how you have to behave on the 405, on the 10, on the 5, on the 101, on the Dan Ryan, on the Kennedy Expressway here in Chicago. You just can't cut somebody off. You have to be mindful of other people. Every time you stop at a red light, you have to be mindful. Every time you slow down at the yellow light, you have to be mindful. Every time it's time to go, go. So someone behind you doesn't have to honk. Be mindful. Mindful next time you get on an elevator and everyone puts their head down, rather than say hello and you've never been closer. Mindfulness is the key to overcoming mental health problems. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr., KBLA Talk 1580. When we come forward, we will continue our conversation about mindfulness.
Bring you up to speed on the news of the day. You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. only on KBLA Talk 1580.
Somebody bring out the confetti, baby!
Starting Monday, January 6th, KBLA Talk 1580 has a new midday lineup.
I'm excited.
Are you ready for Tavis Smiley, Dr. Cornell West, Jesse Jackson Jr., D.L. Hughley, and E. Quarterly Corte back-to-back?
Oh, my God.
Are you really ready for all this smoke?
I'm ready, brother.
Yes, we still have Dominique DePrima in the mornings and Zoe Williams in the evenings, but middays just got lit on KBLA Talk 1580.
We on fire.
All across America, people are talking about our new midday lineup. Starting Monday, January 6th, our KBLA 1580 app downloads are on fire because everybody's going to be tuning in.
Yes, I love you guys. You are the bomb.
Now would be a good time to hit up SMB at KBLA1580.com if you want folks to hear about your business or brand. That's SMB at KBLA1580.com. It's going up in 2025 on KBLA Talk 1580.
It's going up.
That's what I want.
This is KBLA Talk 1580, home of the 2024 Climate Justice Campaign.
Hey, Mom, I've been meaning to talk to you about some new COVID information I saw online.
Uh-huh.
I read that 3 out of 4 adults in the United States have a high risk factor for severe COVID-19. And Black folks like us with certain conditions like diabetes, heart disease, mental health conditions, or being 50 and older are at high risk.
Boy, you sound like a commercial.
I'm just saying. I know you love your ginger teas and essential oils, but remember, there are treatment options for COVID-19.
I promise if I get sick again, I'll call my doctor to ask about my options.
On your period, sudden gushes happen without warning. But now you can say goodbye to stand-up gush fears thanks to Always Ultra Thins with rapid dry technology. It absorbs gushes 2 times faster than the leading store brand and gives you up to 100% leak-free protection. Hello, clean and comfortable with Always Fear No Gush.
What make you? Yeah.
The California Crusader newspaper would like to thank all of our subscribers for their support throughout the years, proudly serving the South Los Angeles and South Bay areas for more than 40 years. The California Crusader is a multicultural, Black-owned, adjudicated newspaper that focuses on providing newsworthy information to the people in our community. We're constantly looking for ways to assist businesses in our community to connect with our subscribers. We provide low-cost, effective ways to promote your business with our reasonable and affordable advertising rates. You can participate by suggesting, sharing, and submitting your stories on the California Crusader newspaper Community Share Facebook group page, or visit our website at cal-cruise-news.com. That's calcruisenews.com. Then click on the Submit Now button located on the top right corner of the homepage, or text CCN to 42828. Again, text CCN to 42828. The California Crusader newspaper, working together to build a better community.
Welcome back to KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr., and we are talking about mindfulness in the wake of the shooting in Wisconsin. Almost all of the reactions to every school shooting is more policing, more guns, more hardening of schools where teachers are no longer teaching, but they are indeed being asked to be parents and therapists. A real breakdown in community. Parent-Teachers Association meetings when I was growing up was a way to close the gap between parents and teachers. In the modern world, it's difficult to find parents who actually attend PTA meetings. When my father was growing up, he said his teachers were in the choir at the local church. And he knew when he went to church on Sunday that his mother, who was also in the choir, was going to hear a report from his teacher about his behavior in school. From home to church to school, there was community, common unity. Some of us live in one place, drive 20 miles to our favorite church, don't attend a church not far from our homes, but when we buy our homes, we usually buy them based on property taxes and where those property taxes go to pay for the best possible schools for our children. But we're further and further away from the church because the decision that we make when we buy our homes are tied to our property taxes and tied to good schools. Oftentimes our churches, including our mega churches, are far removed from the community. But in Greenville, South Carolina, the church, the school, the home, the park, everyone was part of a neighborhood. We talk about loving our neighbors as ourselves. That could be any stranger down the street, but it's easier to love a neighbor who's in a neighborhood. When your neighbor fails to take out their garbage, or you fail to take out your garbage, or your neighbor is looking out for your home and you're looking out for their home, or they're looking out for your children and you're looking out for their children. And my dad would tell me when he was growing up, it was easy to get a whooping from somebody else's parents because they knew your parents. And when you got out of line and out of behavior, or demonstrated behaviors, the neighbors also stepped in. Common unity, community. It starts with a shooting in a school, but it always ends up with someone who missed a detail in some child's life, a sign that was always evident, always present, but we didn't do anything about it. We didn't know what to do about it, or we didn't recognize it. Is there anything more frightful or fearful on the 405, on the 10, on the 5, on the 101 than to go to work, to receive a call from the school that a bullet entered the schoolyard, or that there's an emergency at the school? Could anything be more fearful or frightful as a parent than the security concerns that you have for your children? When we were growing up in the neighborhood, when our mother would give us a kiss or dad would give us a hug, there was this expectation that we would be coming home at 3:15. In today's world, when a parent hugs their child goodbye, they don't know if it's the last time they will ever see their child. That suggests a breakdown in community. It has nothing to do at that level with racial violence and the history of African Americans in the United States from 1619 to the present. Let's save that for another day. The issue is how we treat each other and how we treat our neighbors who may be of different race, a different sex, a different class, a different sexual orientation. Do we see their humanness, their humanity? Do we judge them as different than we see ourselves? Is it possible to love your neighbor as yourself if you do not have a healthy sense of who you are and how you love yourself and whether or not you love yourself? This is a significant challenge that we all confront when we think about the idea of common unity and building a community. When my father was a student at North Carolina A&T State University, the president of North Carolina A&T State University was Dr. Samuel DeWitt Proctor. If there ever was a Negro who could preach in America, it was Dr. Sam Proctor. Dr. Proctor insisted that the young men carry themselves a certain way across the campus. He wasn't in some ivory administration tower somewhere on campus. No, he walked the campus every day. A tightly groomed haircut, impeccable stature, a well-groomed mustache. For that generation of Americans who had lived through Jim Crow, they understood that the survival of the race was tied to the expectations of a talented 10th that would return to A&T and to Morehouse and to Spelman and to Winston-Salem State and to Howard University and the great African-American institutions that were founded towards the end of First Reconstruction, the land grant institutions. These men and women who came to serve also came to set an example, because they took young people and children from where they were to a place where they needed to be. They knew the cold and recalcitrant world that they would confront. Character mattered. The development of character mattered. Their own sense of somebodyness mattered after having been told they were nobody. They had to have a self-affirmation that I am somebody. I am God's child. I can make it. A different ethic than today's ethic. When I think about Dr. Samuel DeWitt Proctor, he was one of the first professors at Rutgers University. He was African American. And so it took him some time to adjust, but it also took students some time to adjust to him. And I love telling this particular story, which is in his book, The Substance of Things Hoped For by Samuel DeWitt Proctor. He said one day, one of his white students entered an elevator that he was already on, and he removed his hat. "Dr. Proctor," she said, "why in the hell did you take your hat off when I got on the elevator? You're living in the Victorian age." She laughed congenially. "If you'll get off the elevator with me for a moment, I'll tell you at my stop. When we both stopped, we both got off." "I'm not a Victorian," I said. "But some things stay in place from one generation to another. And certain manners stand for values that I hold dear. I believe that a society that ceases to respect women," Dr. Proctor said, "is on its way out. Women bear and raise our children. They are bound to them in early infancy. They need our support and security through this process. When we forget that, the keystone of family and home is lost. When we neglect and abuse women, the family falls apart and children are less well prepared and presented, and they fill up jails and are buried in early graves. I believe that respect for women is the linchpin of family and society. Therefore, when you entered the elevator, I wanted you to have automatic, immediate, unqualified assurance that if the elevator caught fire, I would help you out through the top first. If a strange man boarded and began to slap you around and tear your clothes off, he would have to kill me first. If the elevator broke down and stopped between floors, I would not leave you in here. If you fainted and slumped to the floor, I would stop everything and get you to a hospital. Now, it would have taken me a lot to say all of that. So when I removed my hat, I meant all of the above." Tears began to spring up in her eyes. He said, "There are some values that we hold near, dear, and that still abide. They have no racial or ethnic label." Dr. Proctor said it took a lot to convince students that equality was possible. But first, we had to define the optimum human condition and call everyone to embrace it. That's because we are part of the same neighborhood. It has nothing to do at that level with reading, writing, arithmetics, or getting a good grade in class, or being valedictorian or salutatorian. It has everything to do with the values that you will learn at an early age and how we will treat each other in the final analysis. When I think of school shootings, I refuse now to lean on the idea that every school needs to be hardened. Metal detectors, more guns in the school, arming teachers. That doesn't even feel right for Black folk. That if the teacher's armed, some unruly somebody's going to get shot by the teacher. It's just a matter of time. Do not arm teachers. I'm more interested in the unspoken matters of spirit. The details in our neighbors' lives that we are not paying attention to because we are so consumed with our own life. But wow, just think about it, how disruptive your life can be if your neighbor is having a bad day, a mental breakdown, a personal struggle, a challenge, a difficult moment, a difficult relationship. Mindfulness that everyone's not having a good day. We pray for those families who've lost loved ones today. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580. When we come forward, we will continue the discussion and the thoughts around mindfulness.
You're riding with Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Amber Payton with 4 things you should know from BIN News. Black Madison, Wisconsin Police Chief Sean Barnes says 3 people are dead, including a teacher and student, and 6 are injured after a shooting at Abundant Life Christian School. The teen shooter was found dead on arrival. Wall Street is closing mixed to start the final full trading week of the year. The tech-heavy NASDAQ rose to a new record as shares of Apple, Alphabet, and Tesla surged to fresh all-time highs. Lawmakers are still demanding answers about the recent surge in drone activity across the U.S. Drones and mysterious lights have been reported in several states, including New Jersey, New York, Connecticut, California, and Oregon. And Black Detroit, Michigan sculptor Austin Brantley will create a statue for the 27-mile Joe Louis Greenway, highlighting the boxer's life beyond the ring. Set for a 2025 installation, Louis's daughter says the piece celebrates his legacy as a trailblazer in sports, business, and culture. Get BIN News on demand 24/7 at BINnews.com.
Norwalk 5 northbound. This is coming up on Norwalk Boulevard. A crash in the carpool in 2 left lanes sends you back from Artesia Boulevard. Let's stay on that 5 northbound and look at a stall on heading into Lincoln Heights coming up on the 110 freeway. Looks like it's a big rig and they're clearing it off to the side, but that's keeping the drive slow moving away from Calzona. Slowing on the 110, this is making your way southbound. A stall at Adams keeps that drive backing up from just about Stadium Way. Also in Corona, this is the 15 southbound. Delays leaving Magnolia Avenue to Temescal Canyon Road.
This holiday season, choose treatment and recovery for opioid or stimulant addiction and embrace new beginnings, the company of family and friends, and create special moments. Find a proven treatment provider near you at choosechangeca.org.
Is this the This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
For the 4th straight week, the UCLA women's basketball team is ranked number 1 in the country. The 10-0 Bruins have been number 1 since beating defending national champion South Carolina on November 24th. The Bruins have a home game tonight against Cal Poly. Joining UCLA in the top 5 this week is South Carolina, Notre Dame, UConn, and LSU. USC is 7th. Next game for the 10-1 Trojans is Saturday at UConn. Congratulations to Notre Dame football coach Marcus Freeman. Notre Dame gave Freeman a 4-year contract extension that will keep him at the school for the next 6 years. Notre Dame is 11-1 this season. Notre Dame plays Tavis Smiley's Indiana Hoosiers Friday in the first round of the college football playoffs. Freeman is one of only 2 black head coaches in the 12-team playoffs. He joins Penn State's James Franklin. Penn State has a first-round game Saturday against Southern Methodist. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
Follow the leader. KBLA Talk 1580. Follow the leader.
If you're not following KBLA Talk 1580 on all of our socials, then you're missing out. Download our app and find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and on the web at KBLA 1580.
That's right.
Again, you can find all of our socials at KBLA 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about.
By the way, if you miss any of our weekday shows in real time, you can always catch up by checking out the podcast of your favorite shows at your leisure. At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black.
Got your black. Follow the leader.
Oh my God.
Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader.
Whether you're going over the river and through the woods in the capable Silverado 1500, getting the choir to church on time in the 3-row Traverse,
Thank you.
or driving cross town to deliver your famous Cajun spiced holiday turkey in the Equinox EV, America's most affordable EV with a 315 plus mile range. Add confidence to every holiday adventure and get it done with a rugged and capable Chevy truck or SUV. Now during Red Tag, get 0% APR financing for 36 months on select Chevy models when you finance with GM Financial. Chevrolet, together, let's drive.
Offer available on all 2025 Equinox and 2024 Equinox EV, Blazer EV, and Silverado EV models. Monthly payment is $27.78 for every $1,000 you finance. Example down payment is 26.8%. Must finance with GM Financial. Some customers may not qualify. Not available with lease and some other offers. Take new retail delivery by 1/2/25.
Thank you.
KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. The Autopsy Initiative provides a second autopsy free of charge for victims' families who have lost their loved ones due to a police-related death. The services offered through the initiative include the completion of a second autopsy, disclosure of preliminary findings, and a final autopsy report. A police-related death is when an individual is harmed by police officers using deadly force, which results in an individual's death. Police-related death includes in-custody deaths, including those that arise during contact with law enforcement officers during arrest, pursuit, booking, transport, or incarceration. The Autopsy Initiative has a team of board-certified pathologists on call. An autopsy request may be completed by anyone with a close relationship with the victim, which may include the victim's spouse, partner, relative, close friend, or lawyer. To request a free second autopsy for a victim of police violence, please visit knowyourrightscamp.com. That's knowyourrightscamp.com. Then click on Autopsy, then click on Request. At KBLA, we believe in justice for victims of police violence. We say their names, and we don't black down. This is a community call to action from KBLA.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. We were talking about mindfulness before the break, and more specifically, we're talking about mindfulness in the context of another school shooting in Wisconsin, where a young lady allegedly was troubled. She shot at least one teacher and maybe 4 other students. The last report that I had, 3 people had died, but maybe as many as 5 have perished in this tragic event. And we talked about the same things that we always talk about, our hearts and wishes and more gun control to end gun violence. And we're running out of excuses. We ran out of them a long time ago. There have been 83 school shootings since CNN started documenting them just a few short years ago. And we're becoming numb to the idea that our schools are becoming battlegrounds for those who are mentally challenged. But I want to take a different tact in what remains of this particular hour than to think about more police officers, more metal detectors, more teachers with guns, and turning our schools into true battlegrounds. To think about the other stuff that we should be doing. I reached out today to my doctor, Dr. Ndidi Onijiaki, who I hope when my show is officially launched in January will be a semi-regular contributor to be able to come on to the show. And we talk about the wide range of emotions that young people are going through with the internet, social media, bullying, troubles at home, troubles from other classmates, how we're treated by other students. When my father went to school, he told me that he wasn't middle class, but his mother and his grandmother never let them know they weren't middle class. He said Grandma Tibby would sometimes wear one stocking on one leg to church. But whenever he went to school, he always had a nice shirt and nice pants. Because Grandma Tibby did not want Jesse Robinson, that was my father's name before he was adopted and became Jesse Jackson. She did not want my dad to go to school and be picked on by other children. So she sacrificed so that he could look like he was middle class. But he wasn't middle class. His grandmother worked 3 jobs. My grandmother, his mother, was a beautician. He was born out of wedlock. She was asked to leave the church because of the circumstances of a 16-year-old young lady sleeping with her neighbor. And that's how she got pregnant. My father was first Jesse Burns. His father's real name biologically is Jesse Robinson. When Helen Burns eventually got married, she married a postal worker named Charles Jackson, who adopted my father, and that's how he became Jesse Jackson. And in Greenville, South Carolina, everyone in town knew the origins of his birth. That's how tough in the segregated South, even within our own community and how we treat each other, they were asked to leave the church, the black church, because of what was perceived as my grandmother's behavior. That's why in 1984, when my father walked out on the Democratic Convention stage, he had his mother with him. He wanted to honor her. I thought about when I was running for office, in my childhood experience. Again, we're talking about mindfulness because of the shooting. There's a young lady in our class, and she had a number of disabilities, but she was really, really bright. But boy, oh boy, oh boy, did we used to pick fun at her. I wrote about her in my book, The Finger of God. Sometimes we play tag or we play touch. If someone rubs against you, we say, you got their touch. And then we touch the next person. Now you got it. So if you touched Franny, you had the touch. No one wanted to touch Franny. I participated in that. Hurt me dearly. I remember in 1995 when I ran for Congress, announced my campaign at Salem Baptist Church. And after the announcement, even though there were a lot of people there, the next day, I opened up my office on Michigan Avenue. Didn't have any furniture, just had a phone and one desk. When I walked in, one volunteer, Franny. The person I used to make fun of. I pledged on that occasion that I would not let her down when I got to Congress. But we didn't treat her right when we were young. She persevered and was resilient. I think about that because it's mindfulness. At 59, I think about how I treated my friends when I was young. It's adolescence. It's not just how is your kid doing today? Son, daughter, how did you do today? It's also how did they interact with their neighbors today? Did they lift someone up today? Did they help someone better understand the subject matter today? Did they pick on someone today? Were they unkind today? Did they not share today? There are case studies in these mass shooting incidents in schools, where the shooter deliberately shot people they did not like and deliberately passed over people who spoke to them, who interacted with them, who checked in on them just to see if they were okay. And they were all right. Did you check in with anyone today to ask if they were okay? To ask if they were all right? Did you sincerely ask someone, how are you doing? And mean it? And then hang around long enough to listen to what the answer is. If you're paying attention, they're going to tell you something. When I was growing up, it wasn't schools where the shootings occur. People would say someone's going postal. That's the post office. It was a mental health crisis then, but it was called going postal. Did we check in with people to keep them from going postal? We're going to have to be more mindful. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580. When we come back, our final segment on mindfulness.
Let's bring you up to speed on the news of the day. You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. only on KBLA Talk 1580.
If you're living with dry age-related macular degeneration or dry AMD, you may be at risk for developing geographic atrophy or GA. GA can be unpredictable and progress rapidly, leading to irreversible vision loss. Now there's something you can do to
slow it down. Get it going slower.
Izervay is proven to slow GA progression.
Izervay gets GA going slower.
Izervay or avacincaptad pagel is a prescription eye injection used to treat GA. Don't take it if you have an infection or active swelling in or around your eye. Izervay can cause eye infection, retinal detachment, or increased risk of wet AMD. Izervay may temporarily increase eye pressure. Your vision may be impaired after an eye injection or exam. Don't delay. Ask your doctor about Izervay today.
Izervay gets GA going slower.
Visit Izervay.com. That's IZERVAY.com.
Tips to help improve basic steps for building a budget in 2024. Building a budget can help you achieve and reach your financial goals. With a budget, you can keep track of your spending, avoid and get out of debt, limit overspending, pay bills on time, and build solid savings habits. What's the best way to get started? Figure out how much to set aside for expenses like rent, mortgage, bills, groceries, and entertainment. Understanding your past financial habits can help you make the proper adjustments for your budget. Adjusting to a budget can take time as you work to find the right balance, but keep working on it. For more financial health tips, visit chase.com or stop by a local branch. This segment is sponsored by JP Morgan Chase & Company.
Linking social justice and climate justice all year long. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580 reminds you, when we fight, we win. The Youth Justice Coalition is challenging America's addiction to incarceration and discrimination. YJC works to dismantle policies leading to mass incarceration, law enforcement violence, and the school-to-prison pipeline. Their approach? Transformative justice, community intervention, free LA high school, legal defense, and system monitoring. YJC promotes safety without relying on prisons. Their goal? Prevent system contact and help people exit the system through direct action, advocacy, and education. Want to get involved or need help? Call 323-235-4243. That's 323-235-4243. Join YJC in creating change. When we fight, we win. KBLA Talk 1580, your voice for justice. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk.
Welcome back to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. We've been talking about mindfulness in this hour. Tomorrow, I plan to have two very special guests, attorney Barbara Arnwine and Wade Henderson, both lawyers, prominent African-American civil rights lawyers, who will be coming to our program to talk about the new head of the Civil Rights Division at the Department of Justice. Donald Trump has decided to weaponize a division that was created at the Department of Justice to enforce civil rights laws. Now, he seeks through enforcement to turn those civil rights laws literally on their head. These two lawyers will be active and very vigilant in defending our civil rights in federal courts throughout the country. Dr. Barbara Arnwine and Wade Henderson, two of our nation's most prominent African-American lawyers, will be joining us on both hours tomorrow. We were talking about mindfulness. I want to stay right there for a moment in this final segment. God gave us two eyes, two ears, and one mouth. You've heard the saying. We're supposed to see twice as much as we talk and hear twice as much as we talk. Mindfulness includes choosing our words carefully, because words have meaning. Words convey spirit. Words convey intention. And we must pay attention to intention. People with enormous vocabularies can choose the words from a wealth of knowledge and speak very carefully and very clearly, because words have power. People with limited vocabularies only have a few words to say, often cuss words. People who cuss all day usually have limited vocabularies. Pay attention to intention, because their words and the spirit in their words arrive longer and before their fists do. Pay attention to intention. Body movement, body actions, behavior speaks loudly, oftentimes more than words themselves. Pay attention to intention. Mindfulness. Even the Bible itself, the translations, carefully done from the Greek, from the oral tradition to the Greek, to the Latin, to the French, and then to the English language, because translating from Aramaic, the language of Jesus of Nazareth, to the English language, a language that he did not speak, requires careful intentionality in translation. Some of us wouldn't even get the Holy Ghost if we heard or read some of the parables in Aramaic. If it were read in a language we didn't understand, we couldn't react. We couldn't feel the Spirit. But bringing that ministry through translations to English and then living experientially, as Howard Thurman suggests, as a people with their back against the wall, we can read the same Bible as the slave master and conclude something very different. That everybody talking about heaven ain't going there. Every Christian school isn't a Christian school. Maybe Christianity isn't being performed or engaged as a ministry lived and not just a subject taught in a Christian school. Maybe we did not love our neighbor enough in the Christian school, in the public school, in the public sphere, in the public square. Maybe we didn't engage our neighbor quite like the Samaritan did on the Jericho Road. A lawyer asks Jesus a question, and who is my neighbor? He tried to catch Jesus in a big debate. And rather than argue with him about words, Jesus took a difficult question from a lawyer and he placed it on a lonely road called Jericho. And on that road, there was a man who had been beaten, he told the lawyer. And a Levite walked by. Levites were entrepreneurs. They were businessmen. They were on their way somewhere, known for moving herds of cattle and protecting the religion, the Levites. A Levite walked by, and he did not see the man on the Jericho road. A priest walked by, a clergyman, a bishop, an ecclesiastical authority, a pastor, a preacher, saw the homeless man sitting there. Dr. King said maybe he didn't want to stop because he thought the road was too dangerous. Maybe the priest didn't stop because it was a setup, that if he stopped to help him, someone would come from behind a curve on the Jericho road and rob him and leave him beaten. But the Samaritan, a man whose name we will never know, stopped, tended to the man's wounds, cared for him, took him to the nearest hospital, promised payment for the man upon his return. And his story is one of the greatest stories ever told in human civilization, and we don't even know his name. Everyone in our country right now is fighting for their legacy. They're fighting to be remembered. They're fighting for a museum or to have a statue or something built after himself. The Samaritan has no statue. His legacy isn't in building a library or a museum or naming something after himself on a college campus. The Samaritan is known for defining what constitutes a neighbor, because the Jericho road was a dangerous and winding road. He put himself in harm's way to help someone who was different than he was. A neighbor isn't the person who's next door with a white picket fence and you live across the fence. A neighbor is someone you go out of your way to help at risk to yourself. Mindfulness. The lawyers will never see it. Because in the act of the Samaritan is a deed, not a philosophy. The Bible did not fail. The ministry did not fail. The actions that we refuse to take to make the ministry live have fallen short. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580. When we come forward tomorrow, we have the nation's leading civil rights lawyers. Thank you for joining me.